Picture this. A regular Tuesday in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's capital. The city's buzzing and Captain Ibrahim Traoré is running the country when his phone buzzes. It's not a food delivery. It's the African Union, and they're already in town, heading to his office. This wasn't a scheduled summit. It was more like your parents showing up at your dorm unannounced, but instead of laundry, it's about security and alliances. The AU, which had suspended Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, was now knocking on their door. The same leaders they'd condemned were now being visited. Imagine the tension, handshakes loaded with months of standoff. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a plot twist in Africa's political drama. The AU, once firm and distant, was now making a house call, a clear sign their old strategy wasn't working. Diplomacy usually moves slowly, but this was lightning fast. The pressure behind the scenes must have been immense. The AU's visit was a public admission. Sanctions and suspensions hadn't worked. Instead, they'd pushed these countries further away. For Traoré and the other Sahel leaders, it was a victory. They'd stood their ground, and now the continent's top political body was coming to them. They didn't have to plead their case in Addis Ababa. The AU came to them. This shifted the power dynamic. The suspended states were no longer outcasts. They were now key players. The unannounced visit wasn't just a meeting, it was a concession, and the start of a new chapter for West Africa. For the people of Burkina Faso, this moment was more than politics, it was symbolic. Videos quickly spread across social media showing citizens smiling as AU convoys rolled through the capital. For a region so often ignored, this surprise visit was validation. It wasn't just the AU changing course, it was proof that Traoré and the people of the Sahel had earned respect through resilience. The underdogs were now setting the tone, and the continent was watching.
Yes, it exists. But what is the effect of the African Union in reality? We cannot talk about integration in the theme and not talk about the African Union. Because it is this organization that should unite us, create real integration. But we regret to see these wars that persist on the African continent, killing millions of young people. And that this organization, which has heads of state, with armies, is unable to organize itself to support certain countries. The Union is not just a word. The Union is a symbol.
How did we get here? To understand the AU's surprise visit, rewind to the birth of the Alliance of Sahel States or AES. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger were once part of ECOWAS, but after military takeovers, ECOWAS hit them with sanctions and closed borders, hoping to force a return to civilian rule. The new leaders saw this as punishment hurting ordinary people, not just discipline. They accused ECOWAS of being influenced by foreign powers, especially France. So they formed the AES, a mutual defense pact, in September 2023. It was a bold move. You don't want us? We'll make our own club. The AES wasn't just military, it was about sovereignty and Pan-Africanism. The leaders kicked out French troops, sought new partners like Russia and Turkey, and talked about their own currency. Many predicted collapse after they left ECOWAS in January 2024, but instead, they leaned on each other, strengthened trade, and shared intelligence. The breakup didn't lead to their downfall. It made them more determined. The underdogs refused to follow the script, and their story was just beginning. As the AES gained momentum, global reactions poured in. Some international analysts downplayed it, calling it temporary, but others saw something deeper, a shift away from Western-controlled narratives. Headlines across Africa praised the bold alliance, while leaders in France and the EU held emergency meetings. The AES wasn't just about the Sahel anymore, it was changing the way Africa imagined its future. When the AES formed and left ECOWAS, the African Union's reaction was swift. Suspend their membership, condemn the coups, and demand a return to democracy. The AU's stance was about upholding order, but it felt disconnected from the reality on the ground. Many in the Sahel had suffered under corrupt, ineffective governments. When the military promised security, people cheered. Not for the end of democracy, but for a chance at survival. The AU's rigid position created a disconnect. While officials talked about constitutional order, people on the streets supported their new leaders. Critics saw a double standard. The AU punished soldiers for coups but ignored presidents who bent the rules to stay in power. This weakened the AU's authority and fueled the popularity of the AES leaders, who positioned themselves as champions of the people. Even some AU member states began to question the approach. Quiet divisions emerged inside the Union. Some diplomats argued for engagement instead of isolation. But the official line remained firm, at least in public. Behind closed doors, though, the AU was already beginning to feel the pressure of a growing Pan-African awakening. So why did the AU change course and fly to Ouagadougou? Simple. The AES didn't just survive, they thrived, gaining massive popular support and regional influence. The Sahel leaders tapped into frustration with old systems and foreign meddling, rallying huge crowds and making their movement mainstream. The AU couldn't ignore them anymore. They weren't isolated strongmen, but leaders with real backing. Their defiance inspired similar sentiments in other West African nations, threatening to spread the Sahel spirit. The AES deepened security cooperation and claimed successes against jihadist groups, showing resilience despite sanctions. The AU's isolation strategy had backfired, creating a new power bloc in the Sahel. Realizing it was losing relevance, the AU had to adapt. The surprise visit was an act of pragmatism, not surrender, a sign the ground had shifted. The African Union's visit may have been quiet, but its meaning was loud. Though no official apology was given, the tone had clearly shifted. AU officials emphasized African solutions to African problems, signaling a softening stance. Talks of reintegration and future summits began to circulate, and just like that, the AES went from being suspended to being courted. The AU's visit and the invitation for AES leaders to attend the next ECOWAS summit marks a seismic shift in African politics. For the AES, it's a diplomatic victory and a sign their message of sovereignty has landed. For the AU and ECOWAS, it's a gamble, but also a sign of maturity, choosing dialogue over confrontation. This could be the start of a new kind of African diplomacy, less about top-down rules and more about listening to the people. The big question is this: a new dawn or just a detour? Can Africa's institutions truly reform to reflect the people's aspirations? The Sahel's people want security, opportunity, and dignity. The AES leaders, for now, seem to deliver. If regional bodies want to regain trust, they must become true partners in progress. For the first time in a long time, Africans are leading the conversation, and that's a hopeful change. This moment in West Africa could be a turning point, but it depends on what comes next. Will institutions like the AU truly listen to the people, or will they return to old habits once the pressure fades? The AES has shown what bold leadership looks like. Now the rest of Africa must decide if it's ready to follow. The future is no longer waiting, it's unfolding in real time. To all our viewers, thank you for watching. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Divine Earth Africa for more unfiltered truth.